Today on the Blockchain Report, Bitcoin's back above 111K, and it might be because everyone suddenly thinks it's heading to 1 million. You know, sometime between your next haircut and the heat death of the universe. Michael Saylor just spent $449 million on more Bitcoin, landed strategy on the S&P 500 and called it just the essentials. And former CTO of Coinbase says the dollar's losing reserve status, gold is for governments, Bitcoin is for individuals, and the dollar is for people still pretending it matters. All that and more, let's go! Good morning and welcome back, my fellow coin collectors, to another episode of the Blockchain Report. I'm Hank Hudson, broadcasting live from San Francisco. Now, before we cannonball into today's circus of charts, do me and yourselves a quick favor and smash that like button the way Elon smashes the post button at 3 a.m., chaotically and with zero regard for consequences. And don't forget to follow RoxomTV and yours truly at Hank at RoxomTV, because even Bitcoin needs someone to talk trash on its behalf, and that's me, I guess. All right, let's sift the maxis from the tourists, the stackers from the slackers, and figure out who's moonbound and who's begging Peter Schiff for financial advice in this morning's market rundown. Let's do it. All right, happy day. Bitcoin is back, baby. We're hitting that 111K mark. We were all the way down, I think as low as 107 at one point. I was getting a little worried, but we are on the rebound currently as we are up over 2% in the last 24. Ethereum not really moving in accordance with Bitcoin as we have often seen, especially not this particular cycle, but it is hovering pretty nicely at about mid $4,300 range. And Solana had a nice uptick this morning as well, up about 2% on the day, eclipsed that 200 level mark again. In TradFi, things are looking, not terrible, not great. Right now, we got the Dow Jones Industrial Average down about a percentage point this morning, still hovering above that $4,500 or $45,000 mark, I should say. The S&P 5 down about 1.5% today. We have the NASDAQ Composite hovering above that 21K mark, and MicroStrategy, as we know, it goes where Bitcoin goes, and it's currently up 3% today, back to that 344 level that we've seen. We've got a lot to cover today, including our first guest of the day, so let's get to it with this morning's bull run. Let's go! All right, welcome back. It's time for this morning's bull run. And today we've got a special treat for you as we will be joined by a returning guest this morning. He is the strategist behind one of the boldest corporate Bitcoin plays in the market today. As the director of Bitcoin strategy at SMLR Scientific, he's helping a publicly traded company turn its balance sheet into a fortress of sats while keeping one eye on the data and the other eye on the long game. Please give a big Blockchain Report welcome back to Joe Burnett, everybody. Joe, welcome back to the show. Our audience is excited to see you like it's the first time all over again. How are you this morning?
Hey, Hank. Doing great. Thanks to be here.
Yeah, pleasure is all ours. Now, really quick, before we get into the thick of today's news, Joe, for those in our audience that didn't have the opportunity to catch you the first time you were here with us on the show, can you just give us a little insight into you, your background, and what you guys are up to over at SMLR Scientific?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am director of Bitcoin strategy at SMLR Scientific. We were the second publicly traded company to adopt a Bitcoin standard. SMLR did this back in 2024, May of 2024. And basically, like the story of SMLR is early 2020 to early 2021. SMLR was a healthcare growth company, growing really fast, reached $1 billion market cap. This was completely prior to adopting Bitcoin on the balance sheet at all. And then there were some regulatory headwinds that occurred in early 2022 that kind of transitioned SMLR to being more of like a value company play, to where we were stacking, a lot of cash on our balance sheet. Growth was slowing. The company was still making a bunch of money, And the company didn't really know what to do with all this cash that had been accumulating on the balance sheet. So Eric Semler, who's chairman of the board, like he considered mergers and acquisitions, he considered a dividend, he considered stock buybacks, and eventually, in starting in 2024, they decided that hey, Michael Saylor has adopted Bitcoin as part of their treasury reserve asset strategy. Strategy has been one of the best performing public companies in the world over the last 4 years, and really no one has copied him. Why don't we copy him? Because we are in a very similar position to where strategy was in 2020. And so that's exactly what Semler did in 2024. And now we have over 5,000 Bitcoin on our balance sheet, and we're trying to accretively acquire as much Bitcoin as we possibly can.
Amazing. Well, we appreciate you giving us that recap, Joe. And we have a very interesting tweet that's making the rounds from you in just a bit that I'm excited to talk about with regards to strategy and their play and how you guys are running a similar playbook. But we'll get to that in just a bit. We're going to go over this first story, Joe. Hang on for a sec. We'll bring you back to chat about it in just a minute, okay?
Sounds great.
Beautiful. All right, so first up, Bitcoin currently hovering back around that 111K mark, which ain't too bad for an asset that bottomed under 20K not long ago, but still a long way from that magical $1 million per coin mark that everyone just won't shut up about. So when do we actually get there is the question, right? Well, most forecasts cluster around the same timeline in that 2030 to 2035 range. Bitwise is the loudest and boldest, projecting 1.3 million by 2035 based on a 28% compound annual growth rate. Numbers that make stocks, bonds, and gold look like savings accounts. Meanwhile, Swan Bitcoin says 1 million could land as early as 2030. But a panel of 24 experts are split. Some say 250K by the end of this year. Others already eye seven figures by the end of the decade. Even Eric Trump is confidently predicting $1 million, while Anthony Scaramucci warns a 40% correction could slam Bitcoin before it ever gets to 500K. So, yeah, consensus is bullish, but not without caveats. Here's what's fueling the fire. Institutional demand remains relentless. In mid-2025 alone, $219 million poured into Bitcoin ETFs in a single week. Corporations are hoarding coins too. Less than 15% of the supply is left on exchanges. That's the lowest since 2018. The US government created a strategic Bitcoin reserve this year, putting Bitcoin in the same basket as gold and oil. Policy has eased as well. The SEC loosened the leash on Bitcoin ETFs. Banks and pensions are buying in, and regulators have stopped treating every crypto transaction like a crime scene. So, supply is tightening, demand is growing, and the world's largest economy is stockpiling Bitcoin like a strategic resource. Now, let's do the math. For Bitcoin to hit $1 million, market cap needs to clear $21 trillion. Sounds insane until you remember gold is worth over $15 trillion and global equities top $100 trillion. Timeline-wise, analysts expect consolidation in the 200 to 300K range by 2027, thanks to the next halving squeezing the supply. Now, from 2028 to 2030, institutional inflows and adoption curves could push it toward that 500K mark or even 1 million if momentum accelerates. And by 2035, the consensus is pretty solid. Bitcoin at or above seven figures isn't fantasy, it's probability. All right, we're bringing back Joe. Joe! Most forecasts put Bitcoin at $1 million somewhere between 2030 and 2035. Do you think that that's a realistic timeline, or are analysts just playing it safe by pushing the target far enough out that nobody can call them wrong today? What do you think?
It's a good question. I definitely think that $1 million by 2030 or 2035 for, per individual Bitcoin is certainly reasonable. I also think it could happen significantly faster than that if global adoption accelerates like it certainly could. And I think that's kind of, the quote unquote problem with Bitcoin is like Bitcoin is now a, $110,000, $111,000 asset. Like you mentioned, Bitcoin gold parity would be maybe $1 million per Bitcoin, which, there's not really a super valid reason as to why that couldn't happen incredibly fast. Additionally, I know like Peter Thiel has presented at a Bitcoin conference in the past where he showed that in 1980, global equities actually matched the total value of gold in the world. And so kind of like you pointed out, if Bitcoin becomes the equivalent of global equities, then Bitcoin is worth significantly more than $1 million per Bitcoin. And arguably, Bitcoin's better than gold. It's not just digital gold, the same way that the iPhone is not just, Alexander Graham Bell's original telephone. The iPhone is significantly more valuable than Alexander Graham Bell's original telephone. I think Bitcoin is the same way. And so Bitcoin is long-term savings technology. It could go to $1 million incredibly fast. It could also take another 5 to 10 years. I don't know, but because it might, and there's a valid case for it to be made that Bitcoin might go to $1 million really fast, you probably don't want to be trying to time the market or be out of Bitcoin the moment it decides to go on another parabolic bull run, which obviously, if you look at Bitcoin's history, it's done so countless times over and over again, and it might just be a matter of time before it does it once again.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've heard that tale before. With terms of Bitcoin's price, it's kind of a gradually and then suddenly type of thing. We just don't know when suddenly is going to happen. And when suddenly does happen, right, to that million, it could just be a 10% jump. But if you're in the 900K level at that point, that Omega candle seems a lot more plausible, like Samson Mao's always talking about that day we get like $100,000 in a quick jump, which will also be known at that point as the best day of my adult life. But yeah, no, I think there's a lot of factors at play, but we're seeing how it's all going to play out per se. But 100 million certainly seems to be the writing on the wall right now. Now, Swan Bitcoin, they lean on something called Metcalfe's Law, which basically is the more people join, the more valuable it gets. That's the math. Do you think network effects alone can get us to 1 million, or is that a little too simplistic?
I think that's a great way to think about it. I mean, if you think about what money is in general, is money is a network tool where if you owned all of a specific currency in the world, then that money is arguably pretty useless. Whether that's dollars, gold, silver, salt, glass beads, Bitcoin, whatever form of money you pick out, arguably that's why Bitcoin has values, because it's a network good that becomes more valuable the more people that adopt it. And adoption tends to happen in waves and in aggressive periods of time where a large portion of the world relative to the portion that currently holds Bitcoin decides to adopt Bitcoin. Maybe that's the price is going up. Maybe it's BlackRock launched an ETF. Maybe it's treasury companies are, creating demand and educating the world about why Bitcoin is important. And so adoption happens, more people hold this new form of money. And that's a good way to judge like how fast and how valuable Bitcoin is growing and scaling and becoming the, new foundation of today's financial system.
Mm-hmm. And aside from just more people getting in makes it more valuable, there's also, of course, a lot of interesting factors at play that seem to be a little unique to this year. I mean, institutional demand is absolutely insane, higher than we've ever seen it. ETFs are pulling in billions. Corporations are hoarding coins. You know all about that. Even the US is building a strategic Bitcoin reserve. So my question is, does that supply squeeze actually accelerate the road to 7 figures? Because we've seen that this year, but with all of this bullish news, we haven't really seen what I would consider to be like parabolic gains to accompany what has been an amazing year for Bitcoin. Why do you think that is? Why haven't things been accelerating maybe the way we would have expected given all of this bullish narratives around 2025?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I think the answer probably has to do with really in the grand scheme of like monetary history and monetary adoption, how fast Bitcoin adoption has been occurring over the last 16 years or so, right? Like there are fairly regular individual people that, are sitting on billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin or hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. And so when Bitcoin's price, has, over the last 3 years has gone from 16,000 to, 100 and something $1,000 today, like there are regular normal people that have significant amount of Bitcoin that are diversifying, that are buying that, house that they always wanted, buying a plane that they always wanted, right? And so it's very reasonable for these coins that have been held for a decent amount of time by early adopters to release those coins into the market, which then get acquired by BlackRock, MicroStrategy, or now Strategy, or Similar Scientific, or others, or just individual people that are out there stacking sats on a daily basis. And it's completely reasonable for these coins to move from these older hands to these newer hands. And I think at a certain point, the supply does happen to dry up, like it has occurred countless times throughout Bitcoin's history. And then the price rips higher, and then the price ripping higher, encourages more people to learn about Bitcoin. They find out it's a better form of money, then they buy some themselves. And then there's less sellers in the market potentially as the price rips higher, and early adopters had sold all of the Bitcoin that they wanted to sell. And so I think it's just like the natural process of monetary adoption when it's really been happening at, it might feel slow at certain times, but I think over the grand scheme of history, this is like an incredibly unique situation where we're monetizing this new digital form of money from zero, and now it's a $2+ trillion asset class in only 16 years with no marketing department, no executive team, no management team, no employees. Like, this is a pretty unique phenomenon that's occurring. And yeah, like in the short term, it can seem like it's taking a while, but I think in the grand scheme of things, this is happening really fast.
Yeah, that's a good point. And there's a lot of these old hands that have been in the game for a while. They've bided their time and they're ready to cash out. Like, it's been 15, 16 years for some of these guys. And what's another $1 billion if you're an individual, right? If you get the Galaxy Digital cash out for, like, was it 80,000 coins a couple of weeks ago? We had a more recent one that was like 30,000. So that makes a lot of sense. Now, there are people, though, right now that, while they believe it's going to go to these big 7-digit numbers, you got guys like the Mooch. He thinks it's going places, obviously. I think he said like 70% of his wealth, I think, is in Bitcoin. But he warns of a possible 40% crash before we ever even hit 500K. Do you think these brutal drawdowns are still part of kind of Bitcoin's charm, if you will? Or are we kind of moving past this point where, because of all of this institutional money, because of these positive narratives going on with Bitcoin, where we might not see those massive drawbacks like we've seen in the past? Or do you think those are very much still in play during Bitcoin's, quote unquote, cycles?
Yeah, this is an interesting debate that I've seen a lot of people talking about recently. I think I tend to lean that we will still continue to see a volatile Bitcoin price. Like, I think we're kind of at the point in the life cycle of the dollar that it's fairly fragile. And, as we saw with, the '08 financial crisis, COVID, the tariffs that we had earlier this year, like, things can get really wacky really fast. And that's going to affect Bitcoin. The dollar can experience periods of time where all of a sudden credit is contracting and everyone needs dollars really fast. And it can also experience periods of time where the dollar is very abundant, credit is very abundant. You can borrow money and buy real estate, assets, Bitcoin, so on and so forth. And so I think the inherent nature of a debt-based monetary system, which is the dollar today, is inherently fragile. And I think Bitcoin is kind of the opposite of that. And we're seeing global Bitcoin adoption. But because the dollar is so fragile and that kind of our global economy at this point is kind of fairly fragile, it's still reasonable in my mind to see, a volatile Bitcoin price in the future. On top of that, I think, the Bitcoin treasury company phenomenon is interesting. And I'll particularly talk about strategy here, where they try to maintain like an appropriate leverage ratio relative to the Bitcoin on their balance sheet, which basically means as the Bitcoin price goes up, they actually need to buy more and more Bitcoin by issuing credit via preferred equity and buying more Bitcoin. And so that kind of becomes a, reflexive feedback loop, whereas like, okay, if the Bitcoin price goes up, to maintain their similar leverage ratio, they have to issue more credit, buy more Bitcoin. And if Bitcoin price keeps going up, then they have to keep doing that. Bitcoin's price goes down, then they might issue equity and kind of deleverage their balance sheet. And so there's kind of like a positive feedback loop of, as the price goes higher, these companies that are leveraged Bitcoin equities are kind of positioned to maintain their leverage ratio, which could just funnel the Bitcoin price higher and higher. So I think once it really gets going, it has the potential to be like another parabolic bull run. But in the short term, it can certainly fall down, 40% or even more.
Yeah, and kind of the point, like if you heard Mike Novogratz has mentioned, like if we do see some kind of parabolic bull run to $1 million, it means things are really bad here at home. Like the dollar, like you kind of mentioned, is at a very interesting time right now. In just the last, 5 years, we've seen 25 to 30% of all American currency in existence printed. So, I don't want to say we're going the way of some of these currencies in like South America per se, but when this has been the world reserve currency for some time now and you're seeing these types of inflationary numbers, it's not looking good. But hopefully we won't have 1 million in like a couple of years. Otherwise that means everything is on fire. So hopefully it's slow and steady. And that actually brings us to our next story here. So hang tight there, Joe. We're going to be back with you in a second. Because according to pseudonymous analyst Plan C, Bitcoin's path to $1 million isn't going to look like fireworks at all. In fact, it's going to look like a slow and steady yawn. In an ex-post, Plan C floated the idea that from here on out, Bitcoin could slow grind up and to the right with long, drawn-out corrections of the 10 to 30% variety. Not a crash, not a face-melting collapse, just boring consolidation. And instead of shocking blow-off tops, we'll keep grinding slowly upward to $1 million over the next 7 years or so in a very boring and underwhelming way. Which is hilarious because every time Bitcoin goes sideways for a few months, half the market screams the cycle is over. Demand has like an 80% drop, and then people with diamond hands wait for cheap sats. But according to Plan C, it never actually happens. This is part of the wider debate about whether demand from spot ETFs and corporate treasuries has killed the old school 4-year cycle completely. Samson Mao of Jan 3 thinks the opposite of boring is about to happen. He's out here promising an Omega candle that blasts Bitcoin up to $100,000 in a single day. Mao even said that $1 million per Bitcoin is basically inevitable at this point. Maybe this year, maybe next year. Meanwhile, Plan C is telling you to take a nap and check back in 2032. Brian Armstrong over at Coinbase, he's a little more optimistic, forecasting the big 7 figures by 2030. And Eric Trump is casually saying there's no question Bitcoin will hit $1 million in the next several years. But Galaxy Digital CEO Mike Novogratz took the award for most cheerful outlook. He said if Bitcoin actually hits $1 million this year, it's because the U.S. economy, as we mentioned earlier, is on fire. Everything's on fire. His words, guys, it only gets there if we're in such a shitty place domestically. So to recap, one camp says Bitcoin gets there slowly and painfully boring. Another camp says it rips higher like a Saturn V rocket. And Novogratz says if it rips, you might not want to celebrate because the economy has already been flushed down the toilet. Adding to the mix, Swiftix lead analyst Pab Hundal said everybody wants to believe the smaller corrections theory now because corporate treasuries, institutional desks, and even governments are stacking so much Bitcoin that they're building a permanent base of demand. But Hundal added a little reality check to things, saying those strong hands aren't invincible. They all rely on credit. And if credit spreads blow out and risk metrics start fluctuating as healthy markets do, those same hands will panic sell faster than retail ever could. So maybe Bitcoin crawls to $1 million in silence, or maybe it explodes overnight. Either way, the only certainty is nobody will ever agree on the timeline. We're bringing Joe back. Joe! Plan C says, forget the fireworks. Bitcoin is going to crawl its way back, or crawl its way to $1 million with 10-30% dips along the way, or 10 to 30% dips along the way. Do you think boring Bitcoin is actually bullish for adoption, or does it kind of take away some of the sparkle, especially in the eyes of retail?
That's another really good question. I think there's pros and cons to both. I think the consistent slow grind upward with low volatility would be good in the sense that, okay, now people will see there's this new asset class that's growing at maybe 30% per year, outperforming the S&P 500, outperforming NASDAQ, obviously outperforming your savings account. Yes, it's a little volatile, but it's not nearly as volatile as it once was. And I think that could lead to, increasing adoption over time, and traditional finance, people that allocate capital will be like, okay, well, now that this is growing at a decent rate and it's fairly not super volatile anymore, this deserves a default position in your portfolio, whether that's 1%, 5%, 10%, or significantly more. And I think, yes, that would be good. I also think that the volatility can be good for other reasons, like when Bitcoin just rips down 50% or more in a relatively short period of time. In a way, that's good because it purges the excess. It purges the short-term leverage that people have taken out to acquire more Bitcoin, and it purges a lot of the bad actors in the space, whether that's something like FTX, BlockFi, Celsius, people doing not great things with Bitcoin, whether that's just not good business decisions or outright fraud. Like, it's kind of good and healthy to have some corrections. And so I kind of see pros and cons. Maybe it would be better for it to just go straight up, but I question whether or straight up in a slow and steady manner, but I question whether that's actually going to be the outcome here.
Yeah, we're really reaching new and unprecedented times in Bitcoin's journey, and it will be interesting to see how that plays out. I think degens everywhere are crying like, no, we love the volatility. But I'm sure institutions are saying, hey, 30% a year over the course of the next 10 years sounds great. Sign us up. But we'll see how it all plays out. All right, Joe, hang tight. We're going to go over this next story, and you, my friend, are a big part of it. So stay tuned. We'll be back there in a second. But first, the company formerly known as MicroStrategy, now simply Strategy, because hey, it's cleaner, is about to pull off the biggest flex in Bitcoin corporate history. Reports say the Bitcoin stuffed software firm turned treasury pioneer has officially qualified for a spot on the S&P 500. That's right. Michael Saylor's little let's buy some Bitcoin experiment has grown into an index level juggernaut. The company crushed its, hey, what's up, Mike? The company crushed its second quarter with $10 billion in net income and ballooned its Bitcoin holdings even further. And when I say ballooned, I mean ballooned, because while most companies spend August sending interns to Staples for printer paper, Strategy spent it buying over 7,700 more BTC. That included one giant haul of over 4,000 Bitcoin, about $449 million worth, scooped up between August 25th and yesterday, September 1st, at an average price of just beneath $111K each. They also added over 3,000 BTC earlier in the month, plus another 430 Bitcoin buy, and even a 155 BTC appetizer back early in August. All in, they now sit on over 636,000 Bitcoin. That's like $47 billion worth, purchased at an average cost of $73K a coin. Do we have Bitcoin treasuries, guys? Can we bring that up real quick? If we don't have it, screw it, don't worry about it. So, rub it all in though, Saylor accompanied his latest buy with a photo on X of himself shopping with a shopping cart overflowing with Bitcoin. There it is right there. Boy, it's like you teach some people like AI generation and they just run with it. God bless you, Michael. Now, this is the man, mind you, who turns grocery memes into corporate treasury strategy. But now back on the S&P 500 side of this monster flex, Strategy meets every requirement. Market cap way above the $8.2 billion threshold. Trading volumes over 250,000 shares a day. Check. Public float more than 50%. Earnings positive in the last quarter and across the last 12 months. You got it. Or in other words, it checks every single box Wall Street demands. Announcements could come as early as this Friday, and when it happens, it won't just be another ticker symbol, it'll be a billboard saying Bitcoin has officially invaded the mainstream financial system. Because remember, in February, the company even changed its name, so goodbye MicroStrategy and hello Strategy. Because Saylor has been screaming for years that Bitcoin is the best long-term store of value for corporate treasuries. Better than cash that melts from inflation, better than gold that costs a fortune to store. Strategy went all in on a Bitcoin-centric business model, betting on scarcity, portability, and borderless money. And it worked. Now other companies peeking over the fence can study Strategy's SEC filings to see exactly how you can actually hold corporate Bitcoin. And they'll find language like this. We face risks relating to the custody of our Bitcoin, including the loss or destruction of private keys and cyber attacks. They'll also see that most of Strategy's Bitcoin is held with U.S. institutional grade custodians. But there's still no perfect legal framework. If a custodian goes bankrupt, Strategy could be treated as an unsecured creditor. Meaning, congratulations, your corporate Bitcoin is stuck in court with the office furniture. Still, none of that changes the headline here. Strategy is about to turn Michael Saylor's meme into S&P reality. And apparently, he's going to keep stacking all the way there, one shopping cart at a time. All right, treasure box. You have it up now? There it is. Okay, so really quick, this is Bitcoin Strategy's or BitcoinTreasuries.net. This is the best place on the interwebs to find out what your favorite public companies are doing with their Bitcoin. So you can actually see here MetaPlanet, we got them in 7th, but of course at the top of the list we have Strategy. If we click on Strategy really quick here, gang, it'll actually break down all of their holdings, how it relates to their stock price, what their average cost basis is, a whole bunch of great stuff. So yeah, let's take a look here. They even have like a video now. They're always adding nice new features to this website. But if we scroll down a little bit, there you go. Over 636,000 Bitcoin, an average price just below that 74K mark. They're profiting right now in the green over 50%. This used to be much higher, but the Bitcoin prices come back a little bit. Either way, I think it's fair to say they're doing pretty well, and we look forward to seeing them on the S&P 5. All right, let's get back to camera 1 and bring Joe back. Joe, Michael Saylor's company Strategy is officially S&P 500 material after racking up $10 billion in profit, stacking another 7,700 Bitcoin in August. How big of a signal is this for other CEOs who are too scared are still too scared to touch Bitcoin? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a really big deal. And my understanding right now is they've met all of the qualifications to join the S&P 500, and it's still pending the committee final approval for them to potentially get in. And it's going to be interesting to see if they do approve Strategy or if they don't approve Strategy, considering Strategy is a very unique company, right? I mean, it's got this tiny business analytics software company and then a absolutely massive Bitcoin treasury, as you pointed out, and as BitcoinTreasuries.net points out on their website. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens. I'm optimistic. I think it's a huge deal if they do officially get included into the S&P 500. One, because I think most people are just blindly saving for the future. And that's, buying the S&P 500 index fund or a Vanguard total stock market index fund or, a variety of different index funds or target date funds and their, retirement portfolio and their 401k or whichever country you live in, the equivalent of a 401k. And so basically, the entire financial system is trying to construct this beautiful, diversified portfolio, which in a way is just a kind of a roundabout way to create a good form of money. You're basically saying, I don't know what to invest in, so I want to buy the market and not pick anything in particular. And in a way, that's kind of like saying, if there's a good form of money that just wasn't debased over time, then I'd probably just save a good bit in that. And so I think Strategy being potentially added into the S&P 500 will be huge because it's Bitcoin starting to infiltrate the quote unquote diversified portfolio. And there's kind of these weird, interesting reflexive feedback loops to where Strategy's business model and a lot of these Bitcoin treasury companies' business model is to accretively acquire more Bitcoin by issuing equity, buying more Bitcoin, issuing preferred equity and buying more Bitcoin, issuing other sorts of credit instruments and buying more Bitcoin. And so as the market cap of Strategy increases over time, if it's included in the S&P 500 or other index funds that it's already included, well, then that index fund, most index funds are typically weighted by market cap. And so as the market cap of Strategy grows, that means these index funds have to buy more and more Strategy shares to maintain the position that they want to maintain or that they're designed to maintain. And so I think it would be a huge signal to the future that, Bitcoin is here, it's here to stay, and it's infiltrating, everyone's portfolio practically around the world. And I think it could lead to more and more corporations buying Bitcoin and putting it on their balance sheet.
Yeah, and if Strategy were to join the S&P 500, kind of to your point, every pension fund, every index tracking ETF would now have exposure to Bitcoin, whether they like it or not. So it begs the question, do you think if Strategy were to be included in the S&P 5, could this be that moment we've been waiting for where Bitcoin just becomes too big to ignore on Wall Street? And maybe we do really start seeing, kind of what we were just talking about, we really start seeing that people paying attention to it the way you and I do, or the way a lot of people in our ecosystem do. Because it's like at that point, it's kind of been, I thought BlackRock was kind of the major validator for me for Bitcoin, but maybe it's this? What do you think?
Yeah, I think I think the BlackRock ETF was a pretty big deal, and we got to remember that I believe Bitcoin is up more than 2x since the BlackRock Bitcoin ETF, and I also think that these things just take time, kind of like we talked about it earlier. But yeah, I think this will be an absolutely huge deal for the world and for the S&P 500 and for Bitcoin. I mean, another thing that you have to consider is like we mentioned, the committee has to approve it first, but there's some interesting dynamics at play here where if the committee doesn't approve it and other index funds like NASDAQ QQQ do add strategy into their index fund, which has actually already occurred, then index funds are competing with each other, right? And so index funds want to provide the best risk-adjusted returns to their customers, which are just people buying their index funds. And so if the committee, for whatever reason, decides to make a weird exception because of strategies, it's a unique company like we pointed out, and they don't approve strategy into the S&P 500, well, then other index funds that do include strategy into their fund, if we're right about Bitcoin, well, those funds will probably outperform the S&P 500 over an extended period of time because of how superior Bitcoin is at long-term savings technology. That will kind of encourage maybe the S&P 500 to be like, wait, maybe we made a mistake, or maybe we actually do need to include this in our fund because it's qualifying, it's meeting all the requirements that we suggested or that we have on our guidelines. And so if it's actually going to outperform everything, and it has outperformed everything, then we should have this included in our fund. So I'll be fascinated to see if they do include it. But yeah, I think it'll be an absolutely huge deal for the future of Bitcoin. Now, will it be an immediate, are we going to $1 million after, per Bitcoin after this happens? Probably not, of course. But over the long run, I think it's going to be like a very positive sign. And I think, it's probably going to be a very positive sign for, strategy and Bitcoin treasury companies broadly if it happens.
Yeah, and you make a really interesting point, because I guess if it does get included, it validates it in that way. But if it doesn't get included, but it's still in other index funds and it starts outperforming the S&P 5, then it's kind of validating it in that way too. Like, look what you missed out on. And so that's super interesting. Well put, well put. Now, our next question is fun because this is the part where you are actually part of the story here. You recently had a tweet that went, by my definition, pretty viral, to the point Michael Saylor, I believe, even liked it. And you said that Strategy now has two big Bitcoin products. They have stock for people who want to bet long on Bitcoin, and bonds that fund that very growth. Why are both stock buyers and bond buyers excited about this, and what does it say about Bitcoin's place in the financial system right now?
Yeah, this was an interesting, kind of thought experiment where it's like, okay, you have MSTR, which is leveraged Bitcoin equity. You also have other Bitcoin treasury companies that exist, but we're going to think about strategy in this context right now. So you have this leveraged Bitcoin equity, and then you have their fixed income products, which are in the form of today convertible notes or preferred equity. And they're kind of two separate different products. One is the leveraged Bitcoin equity. It's people that say, okay, I think Bitcoin is going to go up more than, the cost of capital of issuing these, the leverage to buy more Bitcoin. And so therefore I'm going to buy MSTR or any of these other Bitcoin treasury companies. And then you have this other bucket of people that's like, okay, I don't want the volatility of Bitcoin, but I do want, fixed income. I want a stable or less volatile, more consistent income stream that I can live off of, or if I'm a pension fund, I can buy this and know that I can meet my obligations into the future. And so simultaneously, there's a good portion of capital that's buying these fixed income products too. And so you have these two products, which, are very different, but providing unique offerings to the market, and they exist kind of simultaneously. The fixed income products, are potentially sucking away capital from bonds, from other fixed income, from money market funds, from, real estate potentially. And then you have the leveraged Bitcoin equity, which is just people that are incredibly bullish on Bitcoin. And so I think the fact that like both of these products exist simultaneously is kind of a very interesting, compelling sign that the market sees Bitcoin as this like foundational collateral that's liquid, that's scarce, and that's probably going to keep going up in dollar terms. And it's really like sucking in a lot of capital from, all over the world. And we've seen this with this year, Strategy's preferred equity issuances or their IPOs. It's been like 15% of the entire IPO market this year. And so this new, monetary tool is potentially so valuable from like two different fronts that it creates like a pretty compelling case that like Bitcoin is here, it's here to stay, and it's this new sound monetary collateral.
And you mentioned that 15% of the entire IPO market this year was made up of strategies bond sales. So does this show companies are starting to compete with each other to stack Bitcoin? And can that competition maybe get too aggressive going forward as more companies hop on the old BTC bandwagon?
Yeah, it's a great question. Competition does affect the market, obviously, to some extent, but I also see more and more Bitcoin treasury companies entering the space as being a very good thing. In a way, I think it's like saying, is it too late to buy Bitcoin as an individual? Well, not really. Like Bitcoin's probably still going to outperform the S&P 500. It's probably still going to outperform, a bunch of other asset classes if we're right about the long-term case for Bitcoin. And, it doesn't matter whether you're an individual or a corporation or a government. If you upgrade part of your balance sheet or a good portion of your balance sheet to Bitcoin, then you'll probably do quite well if that thesis plays out. And so it's like, is more competition bad? Not really. Arguably, it's better, right? Like you have Michael Saylor going out there and saying, when was the last time there was a titan of industry, whether it was banking, oil and gas, technology, or whatever, encouraging the entire market to go out and copy his exact playbook? I mean, the guy has been on hundreds of podcasts basically explaining to individuals and corporations and governments like how you should stack Bitcoin and why you're going to benefit from it, which is like his entire business model. And he's encouraging people to copy his business model. And so I think in a way, everyone kind of wins during this monetization process. And it's, competition is good for Bitcoin and even potentially Bitcoin treasury companies as well. So I think it's a positive sign. Now, like, will the premiums at which these treasury companies trade at potentially compress if a lot of these treasury companies come to the market? Yes, and arguably that's kind of what's been happening, over the last, month or so with the Bitcoin treasury company industry. However, I don't necessarily think that's a super bad thing. It's like if you want leveraged Bitcoin exposure, you probably want to buy it at the right price. You don't want to overpay for it, i.e. pay a premium for it. And so, yes, maybe premiums may contract, and they have contracted. But I also think if Bitcoin starts soaring again, then it's pretty reasonable for maybe the premiums to start expanding again. And then all of a sudden the Bitcoin treasury company phenomenon will be, off to the races once again. Just like, the price of Bitcoin will be off to the races once again.
Yeah, and I think competition, that's kind of like the foundation of like capitalism and society, right? So I feel like it's not quite the phrase is that iron sharpens iron, but I think it's one of those things that keeps everybody on their game, and people have to keep figuring out these new, unique ways to accumulate Bitcoin for their balance sheets. And we've seen strategy take that to the max right now. And like you said, Saylor's opening up his playbook to everybody and say, hey, this is how I'm doing it. It would behoove you to do the same, and we've seen pretty much across the board it's working. So, but we're still early in that, but I think we all know where that road is leading. Now, one more thing that I thought was interesting in your post was that you wrote that if economists really believe in the efficient market hypothesis, strategy's success should make them super bullish on Bitcoin. Do you think this is the market finally admitting that Bitcoin is the strongest foundation for finance? Or are we still a little early in that shift?
I think we're still early, but I think it's pretty compelling evidence that you have these two different segments of investors. One that want the leveraged Bitcoin exposure, and they're willing to pay a relatively high interest rate on that leverage to, amplify the future returns of Bitcoin. And then you have these credit investors that, they could buy, a Bank of America bond or a Walmart bond or an Amazon bond or whatever, which is in a way collateralized by like the future performance of these companies, generating future cash flow. Or you can buy strategy preferred equity, which in a way is collateralized with $48 billion worth of Bitcoin on their balance sheet. And strategy may only owe, $100 billion or so of credit on their balance sheet. So it's like, they're massively over collateralized, which means arguably their fixed income products that they're issuing are lower risk and potentially higher yield, which is why capital, has flowed to them this year, as like we pointed out, is 15% of the entire IPO market this year. So I think it's just evidence that there's something like really interesting going on where it's like simultaneously people want this leveraged Bitcoin exposure, but they also, see value in these fixed income products that are arguably fairly safe with a good return. And the fact that both of these exist at the same time kind of feels like there's just this black hole potentially that's opening up in global financial markets that's just going to get sucked into Bitcoin. And maybe that's exactly what we're seeing.
Yeah, it's wild when you're like, it's kind of like that phrase, when you're inside the bottle, it's hard to read the label. Like, I feel like we're in the heart of the storm right now, and it's all happening around us, and it seems like what is happening is obvious, but it's hard for us to really know because we're in the middle of things right now. But it certainly, I think we all have a general idea of how this is going to play out for Bitcoin. It kind of seems a little inevitable to this point, but only time will tell, as they say. All right, Joe, hang tight. We got one more story to go over with you, and we'll be right back. So Balaji Srinivasan is back, and he's bringing bad news for the greenback. The former Coinbase CTO said flat out that the dollar is losing reserve currency status, and he didn't stop there. He added that gold is rapidly rising while Bitcoin is becoming the reserve currency of the individual. His proof came in the form of Money Metal's infographic. Let's bring it up there if we can, please. Now, it showed that global U.S. dollar reserves dropped to 42% in Q1 of 2025. That's down from the 60 to 65% range that used to be considered normal. Or in other words, America is leaking clout. Now, where did those reserves go, you ask? Well, into the won, into the yen, into the French franc, which apparently is like a zombie currency nobody saw coming back. Who would have known? And into gold, of course. The euro stayed steady at about 15%, which means it's the one kid in class that neither fails nor excels. Gold, meanwhile, has been hitting the gym as of late. Its share of international reserves climbed 3 points to 24% in Q1, the biggest jump in 30 years. And it's the third consecutive year of gains. Gold even leapfrogged the euro in 2024 to become the second largest global reserve asset. Now, Balaji's punchline is gold is the reserve currency of the state, while Bitcoin is the reserve currency of the individual. So governments cling to rocks, individuals cling to math, and the dollar clings to the hope that nobody notices it's quietly fading into history. Bringing Joe back. Joe, Balaji says the dollar's reserve currency status is slipping. Gold is rising and Bitcoin is becoming the reserve of the individual. Do you think that's a fair way to frame it, or is that just a really great tweet?
I think it's a really great tweet, but I also think it's a great way to frame it as well. Yeah, I mean, I think like my view with the dollar is I tend to not think it's going to go, the way of the Venezuelan bolivar or the German mark or whatever else and hyperinflate to zero. I think probably what may happen is over time, competing monetary tools like gold and Bitcoin will increasingly take a greater and greater share of the dollar's market. The dollar may continue existing for a significant amount of time, but Bitcoin and gold will, take a larger and larger share of that market. I think that's kind of what it's exactly what we've been seeing for quite some time. So yeah, I agree with Balaji. I also think it's not necessarily a bad thing for America to have the dollar slowly devalued over time. I mean, that's kind of been happening for the last 50 years. I think it'll be good to have a hard money return to the world and to America as people, maybe stop hoarding real estate and they decide to hoard Bitcoins instead, which don't necessarily, take physical resources away from other people. So I think that, yeah, like that's a great way to put it, and it's probably going to keep happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like the way you put that too. It's like all the big corporations are buying up all the real estate. Nobody can live anywhere at an affordable thing. But if there's a better alternative out there, aka Bitcoin, then at least there's places that people can buy their own homes for once, because that's becoming almost untenable at today's prices. It's outrageous. Another thing that was interesting about this story was that it stated that dollar reserves dropped to 42% globally. That's the lowest in decades. Do you see Bitcoin's rise as a direct symptom of the dollar's weakness, or is Bitcoin just finally proving its own strength right now?
I think it's a little bit of both. If the Federal Reserve, for whatever reason, decided to jack interest rates up to 20% tomorrow, then I would suspect a lot of people would be rushing into dollars. if they can convince people that that's going to offer like a solid real rate of return, which probably could. But they're not, like, and they're talking about cutting interest rates. And so, yeah, I mean, like, obviously the dollar is designed to debase, it's designed to debase against basic consumer goods. And so obviously if you hold, or if you just look at financial assets that are more scarce than basic consumer goods, whether that's the S&P 500 or Bitcoin or anything else, then it's reasonable to assume that those assets will, go up more than 2% per year because they're more scarce and more valuable than basic consumer goods, which are becoming more abundant via technology, via, increasing via capitalism effectively. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that Bitcoin is being adopted because it's the best form of money, but also simultaneously because the dollar is getting debased, and it's two things happening at once. And it's part of the reason why Bitcoin is just drastically outperforming almost every other asset class on any significant amount of time. It's it's in the middle of its early adoption process, and at the same time the dollar is actively getting debased.
Yeah, and it kind of begs the question for me then, if the dollar keeps bleeding globally, the market share globally, does Bitcoin adoption speed up alongside of that, or does gold still get the bigger share of scared money in the meantime, as we're still kind of waiting for Bitcoin to flip gold whenever that eventually happens?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, if you measure gold in dollar terms, it's very logical that gold will keep going up in dollar terms, kind of like we pointed out, right? Like, in basic consumer, if consumer goods are going to go up in dollar terms, then probably something that's more scarce than consumer goods is probably also going to go up in dollar terms. Now, will gold keep, go up in Bitcoin terms? Probably not. Like, over the last 16 years, gold's crashing in Bitcoin terms. Well, just like real estate, just like consumer goods, just like so many other assets. And so, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like, thinking that thinking that gold going up means that Bitcoin's not taking market share from gold is not necessarily true, because Bitcoin could be going up at a faster rate than gold. And I think it's perfectly logical for gold to keep going up in dollar terms, as we talked about. So, yeah, I think gold will probably keep going up, but in Bitcoin terms, I think gold will probably keep going down.
Yeah, no, that sounds right. And I think we probably talked about it last time we had you on the show. As we have this new generation come of age where they're starting to look at investing, Bitcoin will always have been a thing in their world, right? Not like my boomer parents are like, what's this monopoly digital junk? Like, to them, I can understand the skepticism, but when you've lived your entire life and always knowing of this thing, it's going to be a lot more attractive of an option for you to invest your money into than it would be, like, again, for like our boomer parents who are scared of the technology. So, all good points. Joe, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Before we let you go, though, you do some great think pieces on X. We saw one of them today. What's the best place I can send our audience to get more of your awesome, thought-provoking tweaks you're always putting? It's Michael Saylor approved, which certainly means it's good enough for me. Where can they find you?
Yeah, thanks, Hank, for having me on. This has been awesome. Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at III Capital. You can type in Joe Burnett. I'm also on YouTube. You can type in Joe Burnett Bitcoin on YouTube. And then if you want to learn more about Similar Scientific, you can go to ir.simularscientific.com.
Amazing. And one more thing before I let you go, Joe. We started a new thing since you've been here. All I want from you, a price prediction for Bitcoin by the end of this year. If you win, I'm going to send you a Roxom Patagonia to complement the one you got. What do you think? Just give us a number. It's all for fun and games here.
Love it. I'll go 150,000.
150,000. Put them on the board, guys. All right, Joe Burnett, SMLR, thank you so much for joining us, Joe. We'll hope to have you back again real soon, buddy. Appreciate your time today and enjoy the rest of your week.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. See ya.
Cheers. All right, we're going to take a quick break, but when we're back, stay tuned because we have an in-studio chat with the one and only Uncle Rockstar Dev right here on the Blockchain Report. We'll be right back with that and more after this.
Security matters. Zappo Bank, the only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
So, tell us about your furry friend here. What's his name?
Oh, this? This is Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
He's not just a cat, he's family.
Quite a name, and I must say, looks quite pampered.
Oh, absolutely. Bitcoin deserves nothing but the best. He's my little prince.
But with such a valuable pet, aren't you afraid of losing him?
Losing Bitcoin? No, it never happened before, so it's not something I worry about. Excuse me for a moment. Bitcoin, stay here, right?
Bitcoin, no! Bitcoin, come on, little buddy, Bitcoin, I need you. Don't go.
All right, and welcome back for our deep dive today. We've got an absolute legend joining us here from the Bitcoin space, a true cypherpunk, a builder, and someone who's been shaping the payments ecosystem from behind the keyboard for years. He's the mind behind key contributions to BTC Pay Server, former VP of engineering at Strike, and is one of the loudest voices for privacy, decentralization, and building a fiatless future. Please give a big blockchain report welcome to the one and only Uncle Rockstar Developer. Welcome to the show. We are super pumped to have you. Thanks for joining us today. How are you?
Thank you. Yeah, pleasure to be here. And I wasn't feeling great, to be honest, but with this intro, I'm now pumped. I'm ready to go.
Love to hear it. The intro's the cure that ails us. So, Unc, first question right off the jump, okay? Uncle Rockstar Developer. How did that nickname start? Why did you choose to embrace it? Tell us about it. I love the fit.
Yeah, it's the whole, like 3 parts. Uncle Rockstar Developer. I mean, it's a long story, but I'll try to keep it short because you know how all the companies want to hire Rockstar developers, right?
Right.
There is that whole joke like, oh, you know, we are looking a Rockstar developer to join our team. And there is a great comic where a guy comes to an interview and then they say like, hey, we're looking for a Rockstar developer to join our team. He takes a monitor, throws it out of the window, shoots some drugs into his arm, like falls asleep, and then interviewers say like, oh, he's good, you know, he's hired. So I love that, and I was just looking for a name to use when supporting Nicolas Dorier.
Okay.
Founder of BTC Pay Server project. So I tried few names and they didn't stick. The one that stuck was Rockstar Developer. And that's how it started. And as I was contributing to Bitcoin ecosystem, I was supporting a lot of young developers, young Bitcoiners who are not developers. And one of them was Jack Mallers, who started calling me Unc. So Uncle.
Okay.
And it stuck. Seeing the success 2 of us had in Bitcoin, some other Bitcoiners approached me and they were like, hey, can you help me have as much success as Jack? I'm like, well, not sure, but we can try. And now pretty much everyone calls me Uncle. So I'm a Bitcoin Uncle. So there is the short history behind the name.
Amazing. And what's interesting to me, especially aside from the name, is you've managed to stay pseudonymous in this space where many people are public facing and want to be public facing. So I guess my question is, why is anonymity important to you, and what does that allow you to do that maybe you couldn't otherwise?
For me, as a cypherpunk, I kind of try to practice what I preach, right? And value of privacy, value of keeping your data your own is something that we in Bitcoin and in Cypherpunk talk a lot about. And for me, it's, again, not just talking the talk, but walking the walk. And showing also that it can be done, because I think we're at the point where masks are normalized on Bitcoin conference scene, like event scene. If you have people like me who are not comfortable sharing their likeness and putting it into public domain, now they also have an example in me of how they can do it. You know, you don't need to go full bandana and everything like you can do COVID mask. We see other pseudonymous developers like Kale who have a different type of mask. So to me, it's just something that, again, this is how I enjoy participating in this course that Bitcoin is. And I think it's also very important for the future, is because we're getting to the point where privacy will be one of the most valuable things you can possess. And again, I don't want my likeness, my face, my private persona to be part of Bitcoin. I want that in this structure that I've created with a mask, sunglasses, hat. And then for my private life, I'm keeping that data. And it's actually working. You know, if you go to Chat GPT and you type in who is Uncle Rockstar developer, it will give you this.
Oh,
you
wow.
know?
That's pretty good.
If you type in my government, first name, last name, it will tell you, I have no idea.
Wow, you
who
kept
that
it
guy
under
is.
wraps better than Daft Punk was even able to, and they were in a similar boat for a long time.
Well, I also, I'm not that popular, and hopefully I stay at this level or be less popular, because at the end of the day, if people want to dig, and for a lot of people it is something where they're simply programmed that way to ask, like, oh, you know, how old are you? What's your real name? And that type of stuff. It will be there, but I think even those people, for them it's clear, like, okay, I respect your identity in that way. It has certain reputation behind it, and I think it would even be weird for people seeing, some other name attached to this likeness other than Uncle Rockstar developer.
Yeah, and honestly, like, the mystery is kind of part of the fun. I got a feeling the ladies are probably loving it. Ladies love mystery.
Listen, I love that you're joining the party, because I've shown you how much fun I had at Bitcoin Asia, and shout out to all the 50-year-old Chinese ladies that took pictures with me at Bitcoin
There were
Asia.
so many.
I love you. No, I had no idea that that's what will motivate me to code more, man, and contribute to Bitcoin. So I just actually posted on X one of the photos. So yeah.
You got a whole new fan base I don't think you were even aware of. That's now just creeping up.
It's mutual, ladies. I love it. And the more 50-year-old ladies we have in Bitcoin, the stronger we will be.
I love it. I love to hear it. So in terms of Bitcoin, we have the picture. There it is. Incredible. Incredible. You're like the unofficial, like, Marvel superhero of the monetary system, I think. That's why I think everyone's gravitating you.
All of us, yeah.
Oh, that's incredible. I love that. And you got the white suit that time, always dressing fresh. I love the accessorizing. So, Ankh, I gotta wonder, for someone like you, a developer, what initially got you into the Bitcoin space? Did you read the white paper and you're like, I need to immediately dedicate my life to this? Or what was that process like for you?
Well, it was a long process, because I've had the luck to grow up in a hyperinflation. So, I mean, a lack of fortune. I'm joking, of course, but it was something, not only hyperinflation, but civil war. And then as a young adult, I've struggled a lot to come to terms with the fact that it happened like that. It was like, oh, why did I needed to needlessly suffer through this? But then Bitcoin happened, and it turned out that it wasn't needless. It was actually a huge advantage. I had practical PhD in inflation, and immediately I understood the value prop of Bitcoin. And I think it's similar for a lot of people who are not from the US, who are around the world. But then also, I must tell you, I insanely admire people from US who got Bitcoin early, because you have the best financial system in the world.
Yeah.
And you go towards, hey, I do not want to coast on the advantage of money printer, printing infinite dollars, exporting inflation around the world. I want to fight for fairer system. So Americans that are supporters of Bitcoin now, or even in like 2015, 2012, I admire you. So for me, it was way more practical, because as soon as Bitcoin happened, I was like, okay, this is it. This will help us separate state and money, especially again, as someone that followed Cypherpunk's mailing list and was always for, dismantling some of the functions of government, not completely, but taking some of the functions like control over money. I was like, this is it. I just thought that governments will ban Bitcoin. They will realize how powerful this is, and they will ban it. As many others, I was victim of that, trap, that myth. Now, all of us, we well understand that Bitcoin is not something that governments will be able to ban and block. And for me, really, when I saw in 2014 that members of U.S. Congress are buying Bitcoin, once we crossed 1,000, I was like, okay, from here on, it will be way easier. And nowadays, what? We have a president of U.S. being a cheerleader for Bitcoin. Right. Stacking sats, like filling the bag in this paper Bitcoin summer for his family. So we are on a path of no return.
If you were looking back to when you first got in the business, in the industry, and you look at now, 2025, six-figure Bitcoin price targets, we have the government not rejecting but almost seemingly embracing Bitcoin. Are you surprised where we're at now? Did you think we would be further, or maybe even further behind where we are today?
I think we're further ahead than I would say we would be. To me, really, what happened over past year, 2 it's insane, man. I mean, I tell people Bitcoin is what helped elect Trump. And but for you and me, it's something that's so obvious. For a lot of people, it's like, no, it was Kamala Harris, this or that. No, it's the fact that Kamala and Democrats and their whole deep state rejected Bitcoin, rejected the whole industry, and tried to destroy it. Yeah. So the fact, and even with the people that reject the premise that Bitcoin elected Trump, they say and they understand that maybe then it helped Kamala lose. So the fact that Bitcoin is this powerful, and that the whole faction around Bitcoin will play a huge role in U.S. politics for years to come. It's not something that I thought will arrive this fast. And then also the amount of empowerment that Bitcoin is giving, not only in politics, like politics is not part of my interest, but more like to developers, to contributors, to people like you who work on Bitcoin and contribute to Bitcoin in your own unique way. Right. It's insane, man. And you see how many people now see us and they want to join in. They want to add their unique flavor to Bitcoin. So I really am excited about that part. And we're further away than I thought. But still, this is to me just the beginning. Like where we are going, we're not going to the moon. We're going to Mars. We're going beyond the solar system, beyond this galaxy, and I honestly can't wait.
Yeah, and I like that you mentioned like the different flavors. Like we're at this point now in Bitcoin's journey where there is room for these different flavors that are emerging. You are your own unique flavor that is clearly like serving a certain sect of the market. I am this weird new flavor that some people like, some people don't, you know, whatever. But there is that room. Max and Stacy have been their own vintage flavor for a long time. So yeah, like we're kind of entering that new phase of Bitcoin's journey where there is room for all that, and we're seeing it more and more as more people pile in to the space. In fact, you, I believe, were just at Bitcoin Asia, right? Mm-hmm. So tell us about that. What was that like? How was that compared to like Vegas, which just happened a few months ago, and you brought some cool toys here? Like, tell us about the whole experience. I need to know.
No, again, that's the beauty of Bitcoin as a system. Like I usually shock people when I say that I like fiat system. I mean, I like what it did for humanity up to a certain point,
right,
and where it brought us, because obviously we couldn't have continued with trading gold coins and whatnot. Like we needed some better technology to accelerate and help faster develop technology. The thing is though, like fiat has outlived its purpose.
Yeah,
it's obvious that we cannot give trust to governments to control money and be like, hey, trust us, this is the last trillion we will print. Right. Like we only need a trillion more. That's it. And then we're going to fix all the problems. Like, you know, we know they're lying. They know they're lying. Like everyone knows they're lying, but the system is broken. And Bitcoin, as you know, the most perfect money we have invented as a system for cooperation, is what allows what you say is, you know, you and me, we're cooperating without coordinating through, I don't know, some kind of committee and being like, hey man, do this episode at this time. I'm going no man, it's just Bitcoin brings us together in a great way, and we're building on work that others did. You mentioned Max and Stacy. You know, they serve as inspiration. So they've done stuff. You can now build on top of what they've done. I have coded you know, parts of BTC Pay server. It's open source. Some other developers are building on top of that code, and we're all doing it under this umbrella of Bitcoin. So for me, that's really the true beauty of the system. And then you add, as you say, like Bitcoin Asia. Bitcoin Asia as a conference, like I would really encourage every Bitcoiner that hasn't been to events in Asia to go, because they're completely different.
Ooh, how so?
Completely different. Like the culture, the level of excitement. I would say the excitement about Bitcoin, and then unfortunately about shit coins and crypto is huge. Like all the scams in Asia, they're the worst. But the level of excitement is unlike anything I've seen in Europe or US. Then when you go to European conferences, what's different is that Bitcoin as medium of exchange is used the most. Like the deployments we have done with BTC Pay server at conferences and people actually using Bitcoin as medium of exchange, that's where Europe absolutely leads. And then US conferences here are the biggest shows. Like when you look at Las Vegas this year, huge, like all the people that came, all the events that you had, all the, you know, simping for JD Vance.
Yes, there's
all of that. Listen, it's great that JD Vance also simped for Bitcoin. So I appreciate like the fact how everything came together. That Ripple threw in, you know, towel, waved white flag, and it's like, hey, here is our statue. Please forgive us, Bitcoiners. You know, like stop calling us out and us scammers. Like, it didn't work. But they, you know, donated that statue to Bitcoin Museum in Nashville. I think it's a nice gesture. But again, you need to go to US, you need to go to European, you need to go to Asian Bitcoin conferences. They all have their unique flavor, and I love how we all are cooperating through this bitter system that Bitcoin is.
Yeah, well, it kind of feels like, to me, the way I think of it is, everything is relevant until you find something better that naturally can replace it. So it kind of feels like fiat's the horse and carriage, and we're in cars now, and Bitcoin's the car. Of course, we're going to embrace the car. It doesn't mean that the horse and carriage had its perks, but like cars are better, right? Is that kind of why you think the energy was different in Asia? Are they kind of reaching that inflection point at a different time than maybe we have here in the Americas? Are they a little behind us? What was your impression there?
I mean, they are in their own unique flavor. They also had maybe the craziest paper Bitcoin summer with MetaPlanet.
Right.
Like it's still doing numbers.
It
and
is.
The culture is very different. It's more collectivistic, K-pop.
Right,
Like,
right.
It is hard to explain. And again, for me, we opened up with 50-year-old Chinese ladies. Like I can't get that anywhere else, man. And again,
There must be a Facebook group or something.
there are more photos. I'm gonna keep publishing them, and then man, with these figurines also there was quite a fun.
Yeah, what are
because,
these? Tell us about these things.
How do I tell the story the best? So origin of this.
Yeah.
Plan B Lugano is Bitcoin conference in Lugano, Switzerland, organized by Tether, and it's again one of the best conferences. If you have a chance to go, it's now in October.
Okay, cool.
And they, those image generators like ChatGPT, where you can put your image and it generates the figure of you in the box. Like that meme.
Yeah.
So they've, Plan B Lugano, shout out to them. They've used that original way to announce us speakers.
Oh, cool.
So,
Yeah.
you had Paolo Arduino little figure, you had Giacomo Zucco figure, and they announced Uncle Rockstar Developer as a speaker, and there was a little figure in the box.
Oh, so cool.
So,
what an honor.
Yeah, absolutely. But I didn't expect what will happen next. My brother, Fractal Encrypt, who is one of the best artists and creators that we have in Bitcoin. Like, that statue that Sailor always sits in front. Like that big. So
Yeah.
Fractal created that statue,
okay.
and he's an amazing artist. He took that little picture and put it into AI 3D model.
So cool.
Creator, and AI created 3D model for 3D printing. Yeah,
That is so wild.
so
yeah, looks just like you. They nailed it.
well, I should have came in white, but what happened is he published that. Then Printer Go Burr, who is 3D printer,
Yeah.
he took it, polished it, and suddenly there was Rockstar action figure, man.
Oh, man.
And now in Asia, shout out to Sean from BTC Inc.
Yeah.
He started, we talked a little bit, and what is happening, there's maybe 30 of these figures.
Oh, wow. Limited edition.
Well, limited. The thing is, 2 of them are already with billionaires.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So Sean came up with this, said, well, actually, if you have Rockstar, Uncle Rockstar figure,
Yeah.
technically, like on average, you are a millionaire, like more than a millionaire,
Oh, wow.
So acquiring rare uncles is a way to riches. And he started spreading the meme. Man, some Asian lady heard that, came to the store. She was, can I buy 50?
Oh, wow.
So now craziness with rare uncles will be starting, but I'm trying to turn that towards more these laser eye cards and what, especially because of what's on the back. It's the QR code
Yeah.
to Vences Caceres white paper on why Bitcoin. He's done a phenomenal job
Oh,
writing
yeah.
that.
Yeah. Wences is ahead of his time for sure. How do you feel, though? It seems like you're your own asset class now. You're like your own collectible. People collect watches like they're, holding value. We have these now.
Hey, I'm telling you, especially because Sean is right. It's math. Like if you have a rare uncle, you are in select company. I feel great, and the best thing about it though is I hope that it inspires other developers like me, because at the end of the day, the way I contribute the most to Bitcoin is development. So what I hope is more developers see this, so we do their action figures, you know.
Right, right.
We see these bolt cards with laser eyes as a super cool way to spread Bitcoin, and for people, for example, that come to the conferences.
There we go.
Yeah.
That looks good. That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
No, for people that come to the conferences and don't have Bitcoin wallets, we give them these bolt cards.
And
They
we got to
use
show them
it-
how that works, because that
Okay.
has a pretty cool parlor trick that kind of blew my mind when I saw it.
Let me show it.
Yeah, so this is quite neat.
So
So it's not just any ordinary QR card. It also,
can we see? Oh,
is it lighting up? There we go. The eyes light up, if you can see that. Yeah, so not lit up there. He puts it up against there, and then they burn right into our souls. That's amazing. Oh my goodness. The genius of Wentz's coming through in the laser eyes of the Bitcoin card. So cool.
Well, laser eyes keep you focused on Bitcoin, and again, one of the great things that Vance has agreed when we were talking on these cards is to put some Bitcoin on them.
Oh,
So
okay.
people in Asia, they were able to, tap, check the balance.
Okay.
And then if they pulled the card with some Bitcoin on it, they were able to either use it at the conference or when conference ended, download it to their wallets. So I really hope, we continue to invent cool technology, because Bolt cards are done as an open source standard. On X, you can search Bolt_card. It's that account that links to all the cool tech. And then it's not only Bitcoin and Lightning. It's eCash now can also be put on these cards. Or, it's for me, it's all, how do we scam people into profits? How do we pull them into Bitcoin
Right.
in the easiest way possible?
Yeah.
And again, shout out to Vences for agreeing to help with this, giving his likeness to
Yeah.
it, and we're gonna keep producing cool stuff and getting more people into Bitcoin.
And you said you were giving these away in Asia, right? I think we know why all those ladies liked it. That you were the sugar daddy unintentionally. You were just giving out little bits of Bitcoin sugar to anybody that would come by. Yeah, no wonder you're a fan favorite.
Listen, you gotta come with me to Asia next time. With your looks, because I don't dominate on looks. Like, I'll be mystery, you be looks, and then
Might be height. I'm like Godzilla. I've been to Japan. They were terrified. They all ran away from me. Understandably.
it's because you didn't have uncle next to you.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
He's okay. He won't hurt you. He's with me. Totally. So, Uncle, you mentioned about the MetaPlanet stuff while you're there. That is, the whole Bitcoin treasury narrative has been the talk of the town for most of this year, right? They've recently got like 20,000 in their treasury. But then it kind of begs the question, right? Does having these large corporate treasuries piling in Bitcoin every seeming couple days we're hearing about, does that kind of risk centralizing too much power into the hands of a few, which kind of goes against the very ethos of Bitcoin to begin with? Like, how are you feeling about this right now? It's good for a number go up, but
I feel good, man.
Yeah.
The stuff that I don't feel so good about is this whole MNAV and the fact that this whole hype is getting people to say buy stock of a certain company
right.
at MNAV that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then when stock goes down, like, those people are rugged essentially. So it's a terrible intro to Bitcoin for some. So that part is really what worries me the most. But again, people that are doing that, are they driven by greed? Are they driven by ignorance? It's a free market at the end of the day. So I don't know. I don't have an answer to that question.
Yeah.
But when it comes to whether it's too much centralization, I do have an answer to that question, and the answer to me is no. Because you look at MicroStrategy, you look at MetaPlanet, you look at all the biggest paper Bitcoin companies, and all of them together is what? How many percent?
I think it's only 6%.
6%
Yeah,
of
and half of that's MicroStrategy.
Yes. Yeah, so,
Yeah.
so it's nowhere near 50%, 51%,
Right.
and they can't get there.
Right.
The beauty of Bitcoin for me is that distribution schedule was so good, man. And
Right.
a majority of Bitcoin will always be no KYC. So as long as we continue to produce technology like coin joins, pay joins, eCash, and we keep using Bitcoin as a medium of exchange so that sats flow from those that have a lot to those that have less, I think we're good. I think with all these companies that are buying Bitcoin, stacking sats, it's all good because people even like hate on me for my appreciation for Sailor. Like I say, hey, I appreciate the guy because he's shown skin in the game.
Right.
Like, if show me someone else who has put tens of billions of dollars like a fiat online and then held it through 50%, 60,
Yeah.
70% correction. It takes huge conviction for that, and shout out to him for doing that. So for me, man, as long as they're buying Bitcoin, they're promoting Bitcoin, they're not hyping up too many people to ape in at
Right.
huge MNAV, it's all good. And at the end of the day, for those that think that these people are co-opting and can get to the point where they're using Bitcoin, I can tell you, like, chill out. Whenever you think that you're using Bitcoin, Bitcoin is actually using you. So it's like Wall Street. It's a Trojan horse, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And Sailor, the guy has really walked the walk like nobody's business. Like you
Exactly.
said, he's been through the drawdowns. He's been doing it for 5 or 6 years now. But does that make you pause at all when we're seeing all these people kind of cosplaying as Michael Saylor, trying to implement that similar strategy without having the track record, without necessarily having the same cost basis? I mean, his basis is around like 73,000, right? So what do you think happens when we inevitably see a correction? Are we going to see a shakeout of a lot of these people that are trying to do that same playbook, but just under different circumstances? It seems inevitable, right?
Yes, exactly, man. That's again goes back to what I say. Like, remember, people, whenever you think you're using Bitcoin, Bitcoin is using you. So we had a great example with SBF.
Right.
Like, the fact that we crashed so much was because Bitcoin was in hands of weak people.
Right.
It was people that were acquiring Bitcoin and then launching their own shitcoin scams where they would trade Bitcoin for some worthless token. And they were like, well, it's actually on my balance sheet as an asset in, I don't know, Monkey Coin. And it's like, I have billion of Monkey Coin. Like, it's completely illiquid. So it's these weak people and then Celsius, man. Terrible. Mashinsky, all of these people that were talking the talk, but not walking the walk, not setting them up for success. In the end, hey, everyone that believed in Bitcoin got to stack cheap, sats. And then, unfortunately, I think that human character is such that a lot of us will be leveraged for greed. That's what Bitcoin feeds on, like that greed. So when paper Bitcoin summer eventually comes to an end and there is a shakeout, there will be a huge correction. What is important to realize there is fundamentals are unchanged. We all know governments will keep printing money, and I always say Bitcoin doesn't have top because fiat doesn't have bottom.
Ooh,
yeah, it's something that a lot of other people in Bitcoin say as well, but it is like that. When you look at current landscape from technology perspective, like, what is the better alternative?
Yeah.
There isn't. Like, what will AI use as a currency? Like, these paper bills that, Christine Lagarde can decide, or, Jay Powell can, lower the interest rate, and Trump didn't influence it. Like, we all know it's a scam.
Yeah.
So there is no better alternative. Again, I just hope that paper summer Bitcoin doesn't, go that much up, because then it's a bigger crash. But let's see what happens. At the end of the day, I don't worry about centralization. I don't worry too much about companies stacking sats. So yeah, let's see what happens.
Yeah, and when that paper Bitcoin treasury thing eventually does have its correction that we're waiting for, we're going to hear from everyone again that Bitcoin is dead again, and they'll be writing the next obituary, and then it'll just be like FTX in its own weird way, rinse and repeat. We'll come back stronger and better than we have before. Now, what's an interesting point about this quote-unquote cycle that we're in, right, is that there's a lot of people calling for the end of the traditional cycles as we've seen them in the past, right? For a couple reasons. It's like over 96% of all Bitcoin has already been mined. We have institutional money is in the game like never before. Do you feel like Bitcoin is still going to follow the traditional cycle pattern to some degree, or are we kind of working our way out of that phase of Bitcoin's journey into this kind of maybe slow and more methodical number go up than we had previously?
I again, as not an expert, as a developer,
Sure.
I look more towards analysis of people like Saifedean, Preston Pish, Bitcoiners like that, Lynn Alden, and following their work. One thing that I kind of realized was we are definitely in a different paradigm, because if you look at, say, 10 years ago, right. There was so much more risk associated with Bitcoin,
Right.
but there was, because the risk was higher, the upside was higher.
Of course, yeah.
So now we are definitely in a phase where there is less upside, but there is tons of risk is way less.
Yeah.
So an example, if you said to someone 10 years ago, hey, invest your 100% of your retirement into Bitcoin, they would call you insane.
Yeah.
Right? Now, if you come to someone who is planning for retirement and they have 0% invested in Bitcoin, they're the insane ones.
Absolutely.
So like, risk profile is completely different.
It really is.
It's like, if you are now not having Bitcoin in your retirement portfolio, what the hell you are doing? You expect kind of to want do 100x or 1000x, but you know that in 10 years, in 20 years, it will very likely be the best performing asset in your retirement portfolio. So that's my way of answering that question.
Yeah.
Like, again, I don't know, but I definitely see that the risk reward profile has switched, and I honestly like it. I think that for me, again, as someone that's ideologically in all of this, I want to see a world in which like everyone is invested in Bitcoin. Everyone has that skin of the game to also help our politicians and governments give away that control over money, and we usher in new golden age.
And he mentioned, politics and governments are really at play in a way we haven't seen before. Just in Bitcoin Asia, right? I think Eric Trump took the stage, said Bitcoin is definitely going to 2 million. How do you feel about the Trumps or Eric Trump giving their 2 cents as part of this ecosystem now? Is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Is it maybe a 2 steps forward, 1 step back type situation? Because on a regulation level, it seems good, but then Trump coin, World Liberty Financial, don't really love it. How do you feel about what's going on in that arena right now?
Man, Melania launches a coin and then it kills Trump coin.
It did.
That was hilarious.
That was funny. That was funny.
How I feel about it is that it's inevitable, man.
Yeah.
It's inevitable. I again, as someone that's focused more on freedom go up, that's focused more on cypherpunk philosophy. It is a bittersweet, you know. You spend decade plus, like I've spent, contributing to Bitcoin,
Right.
and then Eric Trump comes in and has what, like 100 times, 1,000 times more impact. As you say,
Right.
Bitcoin ambassador.
Right.
So it's easy for ego to step in, which it does for a lot of people, and then it's like, oh no, it shouldn't be like that. It should. No, from my side, you know, hey Eric, more power to you, man. I wish more people showed up for my talk, but everyone wanted to show up for Eric Trump's talk, and there is a reason why it's like that. Like, again, we live in a society that's structured in a certain way, and the mere fact that we live in that reality means that there is some value. To me, I always talk about the fact that it's great that we have politicians. It's great that we have people like Eric Trump, like Donald Trump. And it's great that we have created this circus called elections because every four, man, there is a 2% of population that has highly psychotic tendencies.
Yeah.
So if we didn't create governments and elections and that structure with Senate and whatnot, these people, man, they will be running mobs. Like they will be running gangs. This
Some they might be doing it right now, you know. I
Yeah,
don't
well,
know.
they are, but they need to pretend, you know, that they need to go on TV and say all the right things. And then the best spoken psychopath wins and keeps the rest of the society, like us, it keeps us safe from all these other psychopaths.
Right, I guess
So,
that's true. Who's the most honorable psychopath? That's the election right
Hey,
there.
as long as we get money out of their hands, like that control lever, and
Right.
they're helping us right now.
It's true.
It's good.
Yeah.
And Eric Trump is a good speaker.
Yeah.
So if he can rally more people to Bitcoin, if he can inspire this change we're part of, again, more power to him. And, you know, the rest of us in Bitcoin that have contributed but haven't gotten recognition we think we deserve, you know, tough luck. Deal with your ego. And as long as Bitcoin succeeds, you're hopefully invested in Bitcoin. I have 0 Bitcoin, just for the record, but hopefully you're invested.
Yeah.
And the reward is in the outcome, man. So more power to everyone that's working to push Bitcoin forward.
Yeah, and it's like that old saying, you know, any kind of publicity is good publicity, and that's especially when it comes to Bitcoin, because once you're in and you take the time to do the research, you realize that all the problems we've seen, the FTXs, the Celsius, whatever, were never Bitcoin problems. They were human problems that occurred when people were using Bitcoin in different ways. And that's, again, people conflate that, oh, it's a crypto thing, crypto scam. No. People are the scam. People are where these things originate. So Bitcoin is pure. We just sometimes sully the waters of even the most pure fountains, right?
Yeah, and you know, it's also that there are cycles.
Right.
There are, like, even now in Bitcoin, there is a lot of argument, flaming for this, for that, whether certain people should be welcomed back in Bitcoin and whatnot. But it's as you say, like it's human nature. And for me, the important thing is that Bitcoin is staying on the course, and it's going towards the goal. The goal we should always keep in mind is separating state and money. And as long as we're doing that, we're good. Because it's not that we're just need to fight to reform fiat system. Is also, as you say, the Quan, man, and the whole Terra scam and Luna, and it's going to be volatile, and you know, we have to fight with that in a way. Fight through education, like educate people. Hey, you know, you will not discover a new penny coin that has a value prop. It's just like, stay humble, stack sats.
That's right.
Focus on your craft, and just wait those 10, 15 years. Create some kind of fun for you, because that's the worst thing that happens to 90+% of people, they, get in. People tell them focus on Bitcoin. They're like, no. They get wrecked first 4 years, and then they need to recover. They're like, oh, well, these Bitcoiners were actually right. If only I listened.
Yeah, no one's ever lost money if they've held Bitcoin for 4 years. So there you go.
There we go.
Proof is in the pudding. Well, Unc, we got to get going. But before we do, you've got a lot of really interesting takes on the space. You've been in it for a long time. You have these cool cards and all these cool things that we can check out. I'm sure there's plenty of people in our audience who may not have been familiar with you before, but are now. What's the best place they can go to get more of this, the mystery, the intrigue, the Bitcoin insight? Where can I send them?
So you can send them to Uncle Rockstar Dev on X. So it's R0C, as long as you type R0C Rockstar Dev. You just type in the first 3 characters. There we go on the screen.
Yeah.
You will find me, and you can follow, mention this interview. I'm going to follow you back. And besides that, also Nostr. Nostr is something I'm advocating for, because eventually, we're going to abandon all these centralized social networks and stop feeding the data machine of Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg. We're gonna reform that as well, and I think it will be Nostr protocol. So you can find me on primal.net/rockstar, or start from what is on the screen right now, like X, and go from there, and you'll get more of this, especially if you're a 50-year-old Asian lady.
I'm gonna go search. I think there's a Facebook group that we're not aware of yet that they've been talking about.
Rare Uncles, yeah.
Rare Uncles. We'll have to check it out. Well, I got to tell you, it has been an absolute pleasure having a true rock star with us in the studio today. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me, and thank you guys for all those photos on the screen. This is hilarious, man.
All right, well, we got to end it here, but we'll be right back with more Blockchain Report right after this, so stay tuned.
In a world far away. Nah, just kidding. This story begins in this world. It all started in 1460 in Antwerp, when the first commodities exchange was created, but the real transformation came in 1602, when the Amsterdam Stock Exchange was founded. Considered the oldest in the world, it was the first to trade financial assets. Over the years, Britain expanded its colonial and maritime influence, and the British pound sterling overtook the Dutch guilder in the market. Thus, the London Stock Exchange became the financial centre of the world. The 20th century came, and the world got into some trouble. But shortly after World War II, the Bretton Woods Agreement established the dollar as the world's primary reserve currency, and the center of the planet moved to Wall Street. Today, we're traveling at the speed of light towards a new age, an era shaped by the consolidation of Bitcoin as the currency that will define the future of the markets. We present Roxom, a new Bitcoin-denominated market that allows trading all sorts of securities, commodities, derivatives, options, and anything you can imagine. Roxom, rock-solid markets.
All right, and we're back. Uncle Rockstar Dev, isn't he a fun one? I liked him, so go check him out on the Twitters or X's or whatever we're calling it these days. In the meantime, let's see if the markets are changing, moving, shaking this morning. Let's take a peek. We saw them earlier. Bitcoin back down a little bit. We saw it reach that 111K level, but we've come back down. But hey, we seem to be moving in the right direction again. We saw lows, I think, in the high 107s just a couple of days ago. So momentum, I think, is turning, and we might be seeing that next big leg up sooner rather than later. Ethereum now at 4,300. We saw it as high as 4,350 this morning. Definitely seen a bit of a pullback. We're down almost 2% today, but I think they're going to be okay. And then Solana, was up about 1% today, still hovering just above that 200 level. Not a ton of movement there, but things are looking on the upstairs salon as well. Let's take a look and see how TradFi is treating us this morning. Right now, Dow Jones down over 1%. We got the S&P down 1.5% today. A lot of red on the board. NASDAQ sitting just above the $21,000 level. And then MicroStrategy, a little bit of a pullback this morning. We saw it up to 3% gains on the day earlier this morning, but now it's retreated back to about 1.5%, hovering just above the 339 mark. All right, so now it's time for a little bullish, bearish, or BS. Let's wrap up the show and run the stinger. All right, so it's time for Bullish, Bearish, or BS. This is the part of the show where we go over our top stories of the day, recap them, and tell you if it means things are looking good, bad, or otherwise for our beloved BTC. Let's do it together. First up, analysts, experts, and even Eric Trump are all weighing in on when Bitcoin finally smashes that $1 million mark, with forecasts ranging anywhere from 2030 to 2035, though some warn of a nasty correction before we ever get there. I'm calling bullish on this, okay? Long-term consensus is that Bitcoin is heading to 7 figures, and institutional demand, ETF inflows, and government stockpiling all point to higher prices. Even volatility in the short term, this kind of mainstream conviction only strengthens the case for future gains. So I'm calling bullish on that first story. Next up, that's right, bull. Michael Saylor's Bitcoin Fortress has officially met every requirement for the S&P 500 after racking up $10 billion in profit, and he capped it off by buying another 7,700 BTC in August, including a $449 million haul. I mean, you got to be bullish on this, right? Our Lord and Sailor doing what he does best. He's not just corporate flexing here. He is proving that Bitcoin is now too big for Wall Street to ignore, with strategy likely to enter the S&P. Pension funds and passive ETFs will be forced to hold shares, and that indirectly pumps more demand into Bitcoin itself. I mean, Sailor's shopping spree puts Bitcoin in the S&P. How can you not feel very bullish about that? Hey, buddy. And last but not least, we have former Coinbase CTO Balaji Srinivasan says the dollar is bleeding reserve currency status, with gold rising and Bitcoin becoming the reserve of the individual. Dollar reserves are down 42% globally, while gold and Bitcoin continue to rise. Gotta be bullish on this one too. I mean, a weakening dollar narrative only drives more people toward Bitcoin as an alternative. If states are clinging to gold but individuals are stacking sats, that long-term trend points directly to higher Bitcoin adoption and price support. So today's verdict, we have 3 out of 3 bullish. Today's stories all point to the same outcome. Institutions are buying, mainstream indexes are opening the door, and the dollar is quietly shrinking into the rearview mirror. Bitcoin may be under 110K now, but the path ahead is paved in green candles, baby. So we bring it out the money gun, and it's never working the way you want these things to. Timu. Well, that's a wrap for today's show, boys and girls. Thanks as always for tuning into the Blockchain Report. If you haven't already, make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to RoxomTV and yours truly at Hank at RoxomTV on every platform you choose to doom scroll on. And we will be back tomorrow, same place, same time, same Bitcoin bedlam right here on the Blockchain Report. Thanks for tuning in, and see you tomorrow.
Security matters. Zappo Bank. The only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
So, tell us about your furry friend here. What's his name?
Oh, this? This is Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
It's not just a cat, he's family.
Quite a name, and I must say, looks quite pampered.
Oh, absolutely. Bitcoin deserves nothing but the best. He's my little prince.
But with such a valuable pet, aren't you afraid of losing him?
Losing Bitcoin? No, it never happened before, so it's not something I worry about. Excuse me for a moment. Bitcoin, stay here, right?
Bitcoin, no! Bitcoin, come on, little buddy. Bitcoin, I need you. Don't go.
In a world far away. Nah, just kidding. This story begins in this world. It all started in 1460 in Antwerp, when the first commodities exchange was created, but the real transformation came in 1602, when the Amsterdam Stock Exchange was founded. Considered the oldest in the world, it was the first to trade financial assets. Over the years, Britain expanded its colonial and maritime influence, and the British pound sterling overtook the Dutch guilder in the market. Thus, the London Stock Exchange became the financial centre of the world. The 20th century came, and the world got into some trouble. But shortly after